Hello everyone, I'm back again to review some work I've done since the last video. I hope everyone is doing well with your sketches and don't feel bad if it feels like you're not going anywhere because it still counts as progress, you just might not know it yet. Anyway, on with the review and analysis. This is going to be a little difficult to go over because in the last week I realised there is something that I need to fix. And that is that I lost the drawing habit. It became too easy to make excuses and not draw, and I'm actually surprised that it snuck up like that, and the lack of drawing, for whatever reasons I had at the time, made it easier and easier to put it off and say, oh, don't worry about drawing today. You have so much going on, and that it's okay to give yourself a break. Just take it easy. And I mean, technically that's true, but to what end? Saying that it was okay to not draw started obscuring my path and making changes in my life that I didn't want to make. And that was giving up drawing, which is definitely something I don't want to do. But here's the thing. Yes, I had legitimate excuses as to why I didn't want to draw. Looking after a puppy is definitely hard work, and certainly 10 times harder and more in your face than looking after a cat. But she's growing up really well and I love her. She has the most beautiful eyes, and once we get through the bitey stage, fingers crossed, I can cuddle with her more. She is just so good though, and I couldn't ask for a better puppy. She's sitting behind me chewing on a carrot right now, so she's quite happy. Anyway, my point is that I was using that as a crutch to bring out every time I thought I should draw something and that I didn't really feel like it, and it was just so easy to lose that habit. So that's something I have to work on, and I said to myself that even if I go back to drawing boxes in pencil, I'll do it just to get something down on paper that day. Chicken scratches, I don't care what it is, but thankfully I haven't had to resort to that yet. But let's look at the work I did and bear in mind that the first few drawings were pretty sporadic, and this was done before I'd realised what was going on. Okay, so the first drawing, I wanted to put the practice I did with hands previously to use, and I tried to pick a reference that I considered simple enough to get done within 60 minutes. I don't mind it, but surprisingly to me at the time, I had to be careful with the books. The perspective isn't, there's no bullet, it's not there. And I think that I didn't capture the value changes very well, but I was probably skimping on focus, as usual. Second drawing was another quick sketch, and I say that with air quotes because it's obvious to me now how much I was relying on my excuses to rush and just do a sloppy job. At the time, I thought I could tackle something with sheer fabric, but pretty soon it became clear to me that this was a lot harder than I can handle and with the patience that I had. So it's very, very sloppy. I think the hand is well drawn, but the rest of it is just, well, it's just not there. I don't know what to call it. The third drawing is where I realised that I got into the habit of making excuses not to draw, and this is when I made my commitment to drawing boxes if I have to, build that daily habit back up in the simplest way that I can. And the drawing is okay, clearly not my best work, and I think the hand practice, but I do think the hand practice is paying off, and I'm slowly understanding how things bend and how the skin stretches and puckers around the fingers. I would have liked to have fixed the values where the face meets the forearm on the right, but I'm just glad I did the sketch at all, really. Fourth drawing was fast and loose. I didn't want to draw on that day, but once I got going, I was able to get into the zone even just a little bit, just for a short time. I went with a horse and rider just for something different. I used to really like drawing horses a lot when I was younger, so it's nice to go back to it occasionally. And this one was actually a blend of two references, and looking at it, I think a background would have been nice, but I'll take it. It's work that was done, and that was the point of it. So the fifth drawing, I switched to pen and ink for something different to mix it up, and it's some extremely rough hands. I didn't pencil anything in beforehand, so this was ink straight on the paper so I can see all my mistakes and attempts to fix them. I found it really daunting at first. I had to accept my first marks are going to be wrong, and I had to learn to live with it and just move on. I think that that's a valuable exercise in itself, really. So I highly recommend trying out pen and ink if you can just get over the fear of making mistakes and not being able to hide or erase them and to accept them, to accept what it is that you put down on paper. I made a comment that day that there is so much more going on than drawing, and using pen and ink exposes some of that. We get to learn a little bit more about how we handle things, how we accept our choices or marks, and how we feel about them, that kind of thing. I also did some heads in pen and ink. I haven't done heads in a while, and I'll admit I was scared about how it was going to look. I had flashbacks of the horrible ones I did a while ago when I wasn't posting. And some are better than the others. I think I can see the hesitancy in my lines, or where I try to use ink to fix something. And well, I soon learned that brushing ink on doesn't really help if you don't know where to put it. So also a random horse. Anyway, so this one here is definitely too rough. And that isn't a style. It's being afraid and nervous about trying to make something out of a scribble. The hands are too big and look a little bit manly. So not really happy with that one. But the top one had a profile that had made her look like some sort of fish. So thankfully that was easier to fix and move the lips up and give her more of a natural look and a chin. Even though it's not the best, I'll accept that. The bottom one I like. It has nice big solid shapes. The hair helped, and I really liked the sweep of the back. And in saying that, I actually did have to adjust the back a couple of times, as I had that all wrong at first too. But luckily that was easy to fix. So the hands were pretty hard to do as well. The fingers were so small and coming towards the viewer, but at a glance it works. Just don't look too hard. And this top one was a mess from start to finish. I just couldn't fix it. I mangled the fingers. I put ink in the wrong place. I had to accept that, and I just drew rubbish and I moved on. I think that was the first one I did that day. And you can see afterwards that my lines were pretty hesitant, but it's hard to draw lightly with pen. I'm using a dip pen and ink, by the way, with its diluted ink. I think it was around 40% ink to water. But next, more drawing in pen and ink. I didn't really know what to draw that day, so I started with a little figure of the back in the top. I don't mind it looking at it now, but I had to fix the neck at the time, and I remember I'd made the head too small, the skull part, which is actually a common error in beginners. So then I drew a couple of male heads. I really wanted to see how I could handle using the ink on a head sketch. The top one had some issues with the mouth, but I can also see that the front eye is a little bit in the wrong place, maybe a little bit too big. That's also a common mistake for beginners, so don't feel too bad. We all do it. The other head was something I usually avoid because I have so much trouble with it, and that's facial hair. Oh my God. The facial hair I have tried to draw in the past has either looked like dirt or some type of Lego helmet stuck to their faces. And if you look back at the portraits and head studies I've done in the past, you'll see I've avoided it. But I have a pen and I have ink, and I wanted to give it a try. So I couldn't get the lighting right. Once I put the ink on there, that was it. Lighting be gone. But I do think it came out all right considering how inexperienced I am. And you can see the line across the cheek. That's where I was going to put it in, and that would have been Yeti territory. So, but because it's pen and it sits there, it just reminds me of where the hair does not go. But I actually like this head study. The eyes are slightly big, but I kind of like it. I think it shows that I shouldn't be so afraid of trying things I normally would avoid because it's too hard. And I mean, it could have just as easily turned into some Lego Bigfoot, and I would have had to have accept that and move on. It's all practice. I also did a torso from Statue Reference. I wanted to explore how to use the brush and ink more. I was trying to see if I could model forms and lumps, and it's really hard to get subtlety in ink. I think what would have made it easier is if I had have diluted the ink down a little bit more and started with a more fainter layer. It would have been a bit nicer. But anyway, last one for the week was a horse and rider, again in pencil. Well, I mean, I just really wanted to draw a horse, I'll be honest. I used pencil because I knew that I had to move things around. You might be able to see some of the subtle traces of previous placements of things. The back leg was the hardest to draw. It's still not quite right, but hopefully that doesn't stick out too much. I mean, the legs were really hard to place, but it's something I wanted to draw at the time, so no real reason, just that I like drawing horses. But it would have been nice to include some kind of background now that I look at it. And that's something I've spoken about in the past. I have made it a bit of a habit of deciding and drawing a subject and put all my effort into that without any consideration for the environment that it's supposed to sit in. It's not something I'm happy about, and I can only I can change that. I need to want to make that change and use a conscious effort and energy to do that. And here I'm rolling out my excuses again. I just didn't have the patience or focus to even think about it at the time. But I'm just glad that I did the sketch for the day. So that's it for this video. I think there is quite a bit I can work on. Most of the things I've identified in the past as ongoing issues. Also soft skills like focus and patience, and then harder skills like drawing backgrounds and working on where to place forms, values and shading, working with the media that I'm using, whether it be pen and ink or pencil, that type of thing. So here's to working on things that are hard. And I hope anyone else learning can feel a bit easier to see that the struggle is real and we can work through it with determination and knowing that as long as we don't give up, we can improve and get better. Use all our mistakes and failed drawings as stepping stones along the path. It might not be easy, but it is possible with time and even the smallest bouts of effort. We can learn so much about how we see ourselves interacting and reviewing our own work, and also from old work and from either ourselves or other people's. When you see it after some time, you see it. You really do see it in a different light. So, well, I guess we just need to get drawing, and I'll see you next time with some new work to go over. Just remember that the only real failure is giving up. So don't do that. See you next time.